Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to SRN, with your host, Sarthe. Now, what is SRN? Good question. Speedrun News is a roundup of all the secrets, strats, and new metas from the latest speedrun circus in World of Warcraft Classic. And what an incredible week it was. New world records, starting with Rise running an unprecedented zero mage composition, only to be followed up by Progress, who came in with some of the biggest mage DPS pumpers in history. And ultimately ending with Salad Bakers, beating all world records by over a minute, and on their second run, actually also beating all of the other world records by again over a minute, setting their second record, which is actually slower than their earlier run at 30 minutes, but reaching the very first, yes that's right, the world's first sub 30 minute clear of AQ40. So what are all the new strats that came out this month? What were the surprising pulls that were pulled off? And what were some of the upsets? In short, what is the new meta? Now each guild, of course, does have a new Tinder profile picture with all this fishing going on. But besides that, what are the actual strats that are new to this month? The circus kicked off with melee heavy compositions focused on bringing as much of one class as humanly possible. Now what is that class? Of course, you guessed it, the warriors. Warriors are notoriously known as the kings of Classic, and therefore the strongest class, doing the most DPS output outside of pretty much anything else on most single target fights, but anything that goes above 4 targets, they actually can start losing out to mages. Now of course, as I mentioned, that it brings up that incredible mage pull from Progress on the notorious triple pull, which we'll get into in a minute. From the first few runs, we're seeing new strats in the way that trash was pulled, with Warcraft logs basically restricting trash skips, which was the meta within BW. We are seeing a new transition towards larger and more consistent trash pulls. This is tending to be the biggest time saver throughout the entire raid, and this is what is setting apart those top guilds from everyone else in the world. So where are we seeing these big trash pulls, and how can we utilize them as well? The first pull is before the bug trio, where we saw guilds double pull the trash inside the boss room, focusing down the brainwashers before cleaving the guardians and even potentially pulling a warrior pack into the guardians as well. Now these larger pulls come with significantly increased risk of death, which is massively detrimental towards a speed run and its overall success. So to mitigate this, we're seeing a couple strategies. First, the puller in each raid is almost consistently a hunter using Flask of Petrification to position the trash perfectly, hold aggro without dying until the tanks and the rest of the raid can get there. Next, we're seeing an increased use of Masterwork Target Dummies, an item that periodically AoE taunts every mob around them till it's dead, basically taking away aggro from the entire raid and reducing overall raid damage. And lastly, on these big pulls, we are also seeing tanks rotating AoE taunts using things like Lip or actually Bop if you're Alliance to hold aggro and make them immune to all incoming damage. Now the second big pull within this raid is either the post or pre-bug trio pack after they've already cleared the room. This pull is now notoriously being named the triple pull. In early runs during the week, this pull was done after the boss, but as strategies were refined, it was usually chained in right before the boss. This pull requires the hunter to grab both guardian packs and another warrior pack from up top, either bringing it down to the same room, or as seen with Progress, pulling it into a corner after the boss and having all of the mages AoE and just absolutely pop off. Now this is where Progress broke the mold and showcased the incredible AoE power of mages, where their mages actually succeeded in doing some of the top overall DPS throughout their entire raid. In Salad Baker's initial run, Lottie, the main tank and GM of the guild, actually uses an incredible knockback from the Guardians to be pulled up into this pull and actually be able to grab all of the warriors out before everything stacks up so that they don't have to get chain AoE down and there's no risk of dying to the adds they spawn. Now, was this knockback planned, or was it just a crazy coincidence? I'll let you guys decide in the comments. And now a word from our sponsor. Twitch.tv/Sarthe What an incredible page. If you have Amazon Prime and you have it linked to your Twitch account, you do have a free subscription each month to come and hang out and contribute to this network. So feel free to swing by every weekday at 5 p.m. PST, or pretty much whenever you really want to, and say hi. Now back to our next story. The next and currently final room where we see massive AoE pulls or just massive and risky pulls is the pre-Princess Huhuran room. Now in this room, you can get a poison that slows you and also makes you susceptible to an instant kill attack. As guilds are pulling this entire room now, you can actually use a FAP that lasts for 30 seconds and makes you entirely immune to this poison, because the poison itself adds a slow effect. Guilds are focusing down the lashers so that they can reduce the chance that they get knocked back and then just cleave down the rest. This is another place where masterwork target dummies are extremely useful. Moving towards Twin Emperors, it was found that Flask of Petrification can be used to actually nullify the effects of the Plague. Now with this discovery, it was required for most melee in every speedrun guild to bring at least 2 Flasks of Petrification as well as 1 Flask of the Titans to re-up your health flask after you have to basically break it. This room can be the most expensive room for the melee, so basically you pretty much want to pray to the RNG gods that you don't get plagued. Now, as we all know, Emperor Veknolash, the melee mob within the Twin Emperors encounter, is immune to Fairy Fire, Curse of Recklessness, and as Apes GM Maytaz found out earlier in their run, the Shadow proc from Nightfall. For a melee heavy comp, reducing the armor of the boss does result in massive increases in DPS. So we saw guilds use 2 different items. Every warrior on the Horde side was rocking Riven Spike, and every warrior and rogue on the Alliance side was opening the fight with Bashgooder. Both of these are solo farmable items from Lower Blackrock Spire rare spawns that reduce the boss's armor by an additional 600. So each person can use this as their very first global and then swap off to their normal weapons, and then there is only one designated person that needs to keep the debuff up on the boss. RIP to the exposed armor rogues. Now, the last big brain play, or the last strategy really utilized within this month's speedrun week that was different from before, is how to get as many warriors as possible within the stomach of Cthulhu during Phase 2. And how did we do that? Sacrifices, of course. Divine intervention from paladins being cast on all of the priests, which makes the paladins all dead and the priests out of combat, and everyone outside of that basically using Flask of Petrification as a means to drop combat and not be able to be pulled down into Cthulhu's stomach. Now the reason for this is because you want as many warriors as possible within the stomach, because they can, 1, intercept in to get to the adds faster, and also they do the most DPS. If you can bring these down faster, you can get into the weakened phase and just burn the boss. Now there was the question brought up of why Horde guilds aren't actually using the Dark Glare of the boss to sacrifice all of their shamans. Now the reasoning here is basically because they want these shamans to be back up and in position to keep Wind Fury up for everyone in their groups. Horde run more of a melee heavy composition for the most part because they have to take full advantage of Wind Fury Totem. Shamans could potentially die to Dark Glare and resurrect themselves with reincarnation, but currently we're seeing most guilds use massive amounts of Petri Flasks. Now on that topic, onto today's last story. What happened to Onslaught? Now I'll make this story quick. RIP Delta. Now that's it for our show tonight, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Sarthe, and this has been SRN. I'll leave you all with this glaring question. Who will win the final speedrun race before Nax is released? And how quickly will we see AQ40 cleared? Let me know in the comments, and if you like the video, of course, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you all next month, and good luck out there.